So I decided to read two small pieces, and you'll see the connection in terms of the conversation that we've been having today. One is a new piece in a new book, and then the other one is comes at the tail end of Dark 30, which is the one that I'll read first. Most people don't know that Oklahoma City is home to thousands of Vietnamese refugees. I grew up with many of them. I even actually lived with a family for a while. So these poems are kind of about that. Eating against a wall. She rolled out the bamboo mat near a brick wall as her husband hoisted a gallon milk jug to his lips to gulp down water. Then, with their lank arms draped over their raised knees, chopsticks in one hand, Cool Whip bowl in the other, heads slumped, they tugged at clumps of noodles, slurping them up. Though I didn't think of it then, it was the first time I'd seen someone eat with sticks. I peered out from my seat on the bus, thinking that eating had never been so transient, that somehow we all end up here, displaced, documented. This poem takes place in three different locations: Syracuse, Oklahoma City, and Santa Fe. Sun perch. It is late, but outside the night is glowing with snow and street light. Quiet, but for the occasional growl and skid of the plows. Winter, Syracuse, where the fainting snow fusses and scatters until it collapses roofs and power lines. And now, sitting in that gauzy light, nothing but the sounds of sleep, my son's cub-like snore, I am reminded that my childhood was spent in another city, alone, a boy who knew nothing of evenings, only by the gradual blackening behind buildings, jar bugs pinging electric poles, from the street curb hearing the clink of dishes, chuckles of supper. I remember a fish staring blankly at me from the center of a round plate rimmed with almond-eyed bluebirds, wings extended, mid-flap, the fish perhaps lightly steamed, then wok-fried, charred along the belly, fins crisped, mouth open from its last breath, fossilized in a reduction of fish sauce and honey. Next to the plate, a bowl of steamed rice. I sat at the table not knowing how to eat the fish or rice with chopsticks, smiling as best I could while in Vietnamese John explained that I lived 3 blocks away and that I had been home alone for days. His father looked at me as he left the kitchen, wearing the shirt of a machinist, Paul sewn in above the right pocket. Later, I would learn he worked 3 jobs, and on his only day off, Sunday, after Mass, he would drive his family to some faraway lake outside the city, where they would reel in sun perch and net them boatside. The smells of cooking oil and aromatics fading, John translated for his mother, who asked me to sleep over, and I said no, not out of shame. I said no, thank you, smiled, and walked home to whatever misfortune awaited in that dark house where the plumbing was empty, my bed a pallet of blankets on the living room floor. I said no, not out of shame, but because I wanted to lie down and remember how I'd used my fingers to scrape flesh off bones, skin tearing with it, and how I trembled when I was asked to eat the eyes, fins, and tail. I remember now how in the throes of labor my wife looked at me when she gripped my hand when the pain ruptured up, and how through it all, behind the brown webbing of her pupils, there was gentleness. When our son finally came, he could not breathe. He was blue, motionless. I remember the midwife rushing him off, and minutes later hearing a gasping bawl. I didn't know what I saw as my son shivered, hands gnarled, locked in cry, still blind from birth, breathing underneath a plastic dome. When I think of it now, the drive to that faraway lake, my first catch flopping in the hull of the boat, and later jerking the hook from its mouth. The perch must have been stunned at the sudden uselessness of its gills. And as I watched it gasp against the hull of the boat, I wished what all boys wished for, a way of remembering how air rushes from your body after being socked in the gut, how to sit in the dark alone when street light is just enough for a boy to make shapes with his hands, a play made of light, light made of snow. Thank you.